On Thursday, the House is expected to vote on the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. Now, this is an important bill that not only requires schools to follow the true intent of Title IX, ensuring fairness and equality for female athletes, but also protects private spaces for biological women. But with women's sports under attack in America, the Biden administration has already announced that they will veto this bill if it passes. Now, this really raises questions about what is driving this administration and its fixation on transgenderism. Well, join me now to discuss this is Meg Kilgannon. She's a senior fellow for education studies here at the Family Research Council. She served in the Department of Education during the Trump administration. Meg, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so this is a common sense measure. Congressman Greg Steube of Florida has the bill going to be voted on this Thursday as scheduled. So what's the problem here? What's so controversial about saying women's sports are for women?
Well, I think that the problem the Biden administration has with it is that they think that there are some men who are women, and because they do, and this bill saves sports that are designed for women to be for women, they are preemptively trying to bully people into not voting for this bill. Maybe they're hearing that there are some Democrats in red states who are thinking maybe they should vote for this bill. We've seen a little bit of crossover in the state legislatures on these sports bills in this regard. I don't think that's the case here in Washington, but you never know how they're hedging their bets.
Now, you studied the Biden administration's efforts to dismantle Title IX, the protection of women, which created women's sports. What's their strategy here?
The latest iteration of the rule they've released is one that is designed to ensure that transgender, quote unquote, transgender athletes would have access to the sports of their gender identity. And one of the things that is so dishonest about calling these bills transgender sports bans, we're not saying that boys can't be on the boys' team. They're certainly welcome to play with the boys, as they always have been, as the girls are welcome to play with the girls.
No one is banned from sports.
No one's banned from sports. What they are prevented from doing is forcing everyone else to participate in their delusion that they are the opposite sex.
Politically speaking, do the Democrats not run the risk of losing women voters over things like this?
I certainly think that this doesn't play in the suburbs quite the way that they think it does. But there is just a tremendous amount of cultural pressure on this issue. And so much entertainment content, so many characters are transgender, so many.
Right. Well, there's clearly this is being pushed. Talk a little bit about the veto message from the promised veto message from the White House. It seems try to be nuanced in what they said.
Right. They are echoing some of the language that's in their Title IX rule. And in the Title IX rule, they have proclaimed that there's no reason to have sex-segregated sports in elementary school. And so they won't entertain any plans that include sex-segregated sports in elementary school. But you could possibly, maybe as a woman, try to make the case that it's important for women to be separated from men in more competitive sports or in higher grades. And so if you can prove it, they're willing to entertain the idea that women might have the need to have their own set of sports.
But to me, that sounds like they're trying to run out the clock, and then they want to make sure they can indoctrinate young children in this policy.
Sure.
And so that once they get to high school, this is normal.
Right. So if the kids are used to everybody playing all together, and there are many children's sports, t-ball and that kind of thing, that where all the kids play together, and that's fine, right? But there are sports that are important. There's certainly value for children to be in sex-specific spaces.
I think I see what they're doing is that they see the resistance they're getting across the country. We've got bills. I was actually talking with Governor DeSantis earlier today. They have a safe type act that's going to be coming out of the Florida legislature. The pushback is across the country. They see it. So they want to step back from this frontal assault that they're running into and move back and kind of outflank the culture by erasing the lines of gender distinction in elementary school in an innocuous fashion so that kids are just desensitized to the fact that there's a difference between the sexes.
Right. And, you know, there was a great point made recently that this really is an attack on merit generally. You know, if you eliminate the categories of sex within sports and then anyone can play on the team, then that means you don't have to have any particular skill to play on the team, which is reflective of grading policies in schools academically, because we're just passing kids through and they're not really learning, right? And so sports was sort of one of the last places where you had to be able to do it if you wanted to be on the team.
Well, this kind of ruins the whole thing, though. When I was in school, we didn't have money for jerseys and all that stuff when we played ball, so we had shirts and skins.
Can't do that.
You can't do that anymore, can you? Meg Kilgannon, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Tony.